Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Thrive Beyond Cancer Summit. My name is Tekquiree Spencer, and today's guest, we have Danielle Hall. She is the founder of Sound Embrace, and she is a sound therapist. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Yay! I'm so excited that you're with us today.
Me too. And I love how just as you're coming in, an airplane is going by, and I'm like, how great to bring in sounds with sound therapy already with the with the call.
Everything is how it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
That is so funny.
Well, and like with what I do, I'm really sensitive to sounds, and so when we become more present in the moment too, we start to notice these little things, and so I'm already getting off topic before we even start, so I apologize. We just had such a good conversation before we got on the call that I'm already like, we're already in this.
It's all good. No, that's good. Just to be able to even be aware of, what's going on around us. Like you said, you are a sound therapist. So, I didn't even think about that. You probably hear every sound.
Oh, I had to turn off my heater. I had to unplug my refrigerator before we did this because I knew that it would just pull me out of this experience, but of speaking with you. But yeah, like we walk through our day not very aware or conscious of the sounds that are happening around us and how they actually influence our well-being. And since I've been doing this work, I've been doing this for 7 years now, and I know immediately if I'm getting a headache or if I'm having some physical reaction, I can usually pinpoint it to something that's happening in the space that I'm in.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I did not think about that.
Yeah. So it could be different sounds that are happening in our environment. It can also be picking up on emotions of other people. Like, I think a lot of us have had that experience of, we're feeling like pumped before we enter a room or enter a party, and then we cross that threshold, and then all of a sudden we have this shift. We have either like a headache, or we're feeling tired, or we're feeling weighted down for some reason, and you weren't feeling that way before you entered the room, and that could also be something connected with the emotional energy of a space or the people in the space. So it's really interesting. I mean, everything is made up of frequency. Everything is made up of sound. This physical reality is really just an illusion. We're really just these spinning vortices of energy that create matter. So the more we can slow down and become very present and aware of our being, the more we can pick up on these things and empower ourselves to course correct or shift gears and whatever it is that's happening.
Wow. Okay. Look, I'm trying to get myself, because I'm like, wow, I never thought of it like that, especially with sound. Wow. So, okay. I have so many questions I want to ask you based on everything you just said. Okay. So first of all, what is a sound therapist?
Sure. So what I do specifically is I support mental health and wellness within our communities using sound therapy. Mm-hmm. And so that is using sound and vibration to create an environment for your body to go into its own natural healing processes. So the term that most people hear is sound healer. But through my training, I prefer sound practitioner or sound therapist, because to call myself a healer would mean I believe to disempower you, that I'm not the healer. I'm really just creating the environment for you to go into your own natural healing processes and to find self-empowerment through that. And you don't need to come to me I don't want you to have to continue to come to me is the thing. I'm more of a guide on your journey for health,
Yes.
a guide on your journey for wellness. Um, and so, yeah, that's why I would say sound practitioner or sound therapist rather than sound healer.
And I love that you say that, because we are kind of all conditioned to be like, okay, you have something wrong with you, so you go to the doctor. And then you
Yeah.
just keep relying on the doctor or whoever that person is to keep helping you, as opposed to go within and become empowered to know also like what you need, as opposed to always going outside of yourself.
Right.
And that's where real healing takes place, right?
And it is becoming inquisitive for yourself. And I mean, but I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier too. My journey to even get here,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know to be curious. And I think that, society kind of teaches us that, or at least from my point of view, that we are to sit, be quiet, have our hands in our lap, follow the line, do what we're told, and not really have an opinion.
Yeah.
So like for the first 28 years of my life, I really didn't know to question the health issues that I was facing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was really shaken shaken up a comment from my doctor that that shifted my perspective on my own health. And so, one of the things that is really important to me in my work is that I inspire that curiosity of self, so that when you have an awareness, you can then choose to empower yourself to make the change you want to see.
Yeah.
And ask more questions. Like get that curious juices going.
Yes. I think we talked about this too. Like we both like to ask a lot of questions. So how did you become a sound therapist? Like, how did it find you, or how did you find sound therapy?
Oh my gosh. I joke about this to some of my colleagues. I'm just like, this is not a field that you choose to be in. I don't know. Well, I mean, I chose it now, but I originally went to school for photography. I was a commercial photographer for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And like I mentioned earlier, the first 28 years of my life, I was sick. I was on again, off again sick all my life until 28, when I was not my normal sick. I started losing my hair. I started losing the enamel on my teeth. I had migraines. I had lumps. I had chronic constipation, crazy skin issues, all coming at one time. And all of these things I'd had in different degrees growing up, but this was like all coming together at one time at a rate that, and an extreme that I had never experienced. And so it was one emergency room trip. I am there, I'm in the gurney, sitting on the table, and the doctor comes in and doesn't even look at me, picks up my chart, and he's like, well, Miss Hall, if we don't find out what's going on with you, you're going down a really dark road. He puts my chart down, and he walks out of the room. And I'd never been afraid for my life before that, but that was that moment that I felt like the universe just took my shoulders and shook me and said, pay attention here. The doctor comes back in the room and basically is saying that, my body is deteriorating. They don't know why. And they needed to do a lot more tests to try to find out what was happening. Mm-hmm. So I get a pill, go home, waiting for my next appointment. You know how they book them like 2 weeks later, and you're like, you just told me like I'm about to die.
Right.
I'm in a dire state, and my appointment's in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Like, how does that make sense?
Exactly.
So I love my doctors, don't get me wrong, but in this particular case, I was just like, the system is not working.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how, well, I went home and I didn't know at the time the difference between prayer and meditation, but I just like, I sat down and I started praying, but really like yelling at God. I was just saying things like, I don't understand why this is happening. Why is this happening to me? What am I supposed to do with this? And just crying and cursing and blaming and all of the things. And, when you have one of those really, really deep cathartic cries, your body just feels like it's like vibrating. Yeah. And I got to this point of silence and feeling that internal vibration. And it was like, I just heard, you're going to be fine, be open. And that knowing sense came in, but I was like, that like triggered me again. And I'm like, WTF, like, what does that mean, God? Like, I don't understand, and I went through the whole thing again. But then it was the next day that what came into my awareness was a naturopathic doctor. I only was open to going because it said doctor in the name. I come from a military family, so it was very much like, follow the line, do what you're told, be quiet.
Yeah.
And so that was instilled throughout my life. But so I go to this naturopathic doctor and find out that all my health issues from a young age were a gluten allergy. And I find I have an experience of feeling what healthy felt like for the first time in my life at 28 years old.
Wow.
And I was like, oh yeah, like if you can imagine, being on, I don't even remember how many medications I was on at one time, but when you're on that many medications, you're kind of going through the world like you're in this weird bubble and this weird haze, like the air is thick and you can feel it, and like you're there, but you're not quite there. And so to have this experience for the first time of having more energy, being really clear in my mind, having like actually seeing my nose for the first time, my face without inflammation, my body, my weight started to figure itself out. And I was like, oh, okay, like this is my size. And to feel pretty, to like all of the things started to really fall into place a little bit. And then I was on this really high, and then I kind of spiraled out. I was like starting to get really upset with myself, and then playing the blame game again of, why didn't my parents know how food affect the body? Why wasn't I more curious about, like what was happening to me? And that was actually the catalyst for me to start not seeking out other alternative therapies, but to find out why I had such a skeptic mind around alternative practices. Yeah. And so I started to go to all of these different yoga. I didn't even do yoga before that, which is like, I was so shades on when it came to anything like that. Massage, chiropractor, acupuncture, color therapy, crystal therapy. And then I found a sound bath, and I went, and I was living in San Francisco at the time. And I hear about this free sound bath, and I'm like, all right, I'll go to this like weird thing. And I'm wearing my skinny jeans and my Nike lifts, and I'm wearing a Giants baseball hat, and I go in and I'm greeted by this white dude with like dreads and like drop crotch pants and like no shirt but a vest, and I'm barefoot, and I'm like, what am I about to walk into? And I totally had like major judgments going in, and there was incense burning, and there was like a Jesus and a Kuan Yin and a Buddha and sacred geometry. I didn't even know what sacred geometry was at the time. And the guy is just like, he's like, hey, welcome. And it was like so out of place for San Francisco. It was more of like a LA vibe, but with the head, like just how he was talking and how he was moving his body. And he was like, welcome, take your shoes off. You can leave your stuff over here, and then go around the corner and find a spot. I'm like, okay. And so I like take my shoes off. I put my stuff to the side, and I go in and I see like more people. like him, like fur and no shirts, and they're like kind of massaging each other. I'm like, what am I walking into? There were really interesting smells and just a lot of things that I not been up close and personal with because I hadn't opened myself up to things. And so I it was a packed room of people laying down or sitting down on the floor, and I immediately turned around to leave, and the same guy who greeted me was like, "Oh, where are you going?" And I'm like, "There's no room for me. Like, I'll just check this out another time." And I say that, and these two guys who are already laying down were like, "Oh, well, you can get in between us. You can, like, we'll make room for you." And at the time, I'm like super body conscious, and like in my mind, my like head was racing of like, I gotta go lay down between these two dudes and touch naked elbows with these like, no shirt dudes. And I was just my whole body, my whole being was like, just get out of there. But somehow I laid down, or I sat down between them, and then the facilitator turned off the lights with no explanation of what was going to happen. And I freaked out. I yelled out, "I don't know what this is. I don't know what is going to happen. This is my first sound bath. I don't know what's happening." And it wasn't for the guy saying, "Oh, don't worry. Be open."
Oh,
The same thing I heard in that meditation, like months and months ago. I would not have laid down and be open to what that experience was for me, which is extremely profound experience. And afterwards, I asked the guy, like, "Hey, like, why did I have the experience that I had in the sound bath?" And he couldn't explain it to me. So I went the next day. Apparently it was a school. And I went back the next day to get the explanation. I signed up for the school right on the spot, not thinking that I was necessarily going to change careers. But once I started the program, I knew immediately that it was something that I needed to share with other people. And it was so clear to me why these alternative practices were not accessible, didn't feel accessible, didn't feel like I could go there and be comfortable, and definitely learned a lot about myself in where I was very skeptic and very closed-minded and had judgments on other people based on what they look like, and especially in that situation. And it was a rapid year of self-growth and development, and I haven't turned back. Transitioned out of commercial photography world into health and wellness, and now here I am. I'm based in Atlanta, but I have practitioners in the Bay Area, LA, and here in Atlanta. I create job opportunities for sound practitioners. I teach sound healing classes, and I provide I facilitate the experiences in corporate wellness programs, therapy centers, and for the public.
That's so awesome. What an amazing, funny story you have.
Oh my gosh.
About your first experience.
I will never forget that you never forget your first sound bath.
Right. No, you don't.
But it's also why I facilitate and teach the way that I teach and facilitate the way that I facilitate, because there's some things that get glossed over in some facilitations for some facilitators. And I think it really comes down to knowing who's in the room, knowing who you're wanting in the room, to bring them into a session like that. And so, with certain sessions, for example, I have one called Relax and Sound, and the intention is that it's to release stress, to reduce pain. I'm not talking about anything esoteric. It's strictly on the science of sound and how it supports the immune system. And then, I have a completely different experience called Sound Journey, where it is more of the esoteric or, type of experience. So sometimes you have to meet people where they're at to make these practices um, accessible
Yeah.
to them.
So what exactly, okay, so what can people expect when they go to a
Mm,
sound bath? So my first experience, I didn't know what to expect. Actually, it
yeah.
was prenatal yoga class, but my prenatal yoga teacher was also like a sound therapist. And so she had like the gongs and the bowls and everything.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Like I was so relaxed. Like I wanted to cry. I
Yeah.
could not wait every week to go to my prenatal yoga class. It just makes me feel just different. Like it makes me feel good and relaxed and not like worrying about anything that's going on in the world, nothing that's going on with me. I
Right.
feel still and peace within myself. Can you explain that? Because I'm sure people are like, well, what is a sound bath? Like, what are you doing? A sound bath? What is this?
Well, okay, so I'll start by saying that it's called a sound bath because it feels like the sounds are washing over your body. So sometimes people feel
Mm.
it on one side versus the other. They may just feel it in their head. They may not feel the vibration at all. It might just put you to sleep. Um, and the sounds, so they're so every practitioner is different in the instruments that they use to facilitate with. I use 7 quartz crystal bowls,
Mm.
gong, drums, shakers, chimes, and other little instruments like that. And so with sound healing music, and the way that I usually, or at least start off a session with, is with the quartz crystal bowls, which create this kind of androgynous sound, like almost formless sound. There's no beat. So
Yeah.
like the reason why it's so powerful is because, so let's say we're at the club, we're out dancing,
Yeah.
right? You and me, we have our lady circle, we're doing our thing, and there's the beat. And like our brains are automatically figuring out what the next beat is, what mathematically is going to happen next. This is our survival part of our brain, our limbic brain. And so like, even though there's no tiger on the dance floor, or maybe there is, but even though there's not like this like predator animal tiger, will stay there,
Yeah.
that's coming out to attack us, our brain is it's taking in the environment around us and that beat so that we know how we're going to move even if the beat stops.
Mm.
So with sound healing music, it's this formless, no beat at all sound um, that almost acts like a butterfly net to go and capture that mind chatter that we are constantly living with on a day-to-day basis, whether we're conscious of it or not. And so at a certain point, it usually takes 4 to 8 minutes to get into this deeper meditative state. So I'm playing in a very specific way for 4 to 8 minutes, and I can see everyone's bodies resting in and heart rate syncing up. And then that's when you're going from the sympathetic nervous system state, which is what I was talking about with the beat and how we're automatically calculating, into the parasympathetic nervous system state. So sympathetic is that fight or flight, that limbic brain that's going to save us from the tiger, while the parasympathetic nervous system state is that rest and digest. It's the environment that our body goes into to repair itself and go into its own natural healing state. So more often than not, someone walking into a sound bath will be getting checked in by someone from a list or their Eventbrite app or whatever it is that practitioner uses. You'll be instructed to take your shoes off, bring a yoga mat, bring a blanket, a pillow, anything that you need to feel comfortable laying down for 40 minutes. You leave your stuff, you turn off your phone, please. Vibration mode is
Gotta do that.
bueno. And so you leave your stuff over in like a little cubby area, and then you come in and lay down your mat near the instruments. And then usually, at least in my practice, I take you through playing the quartz crystal bowl so that your mind isn't wondering how those instruments are being played, for one. And two, kind of the process of what you'll go through. So in one of my sound baths, I'll ask everyone to raise their hand if they have not ever experienced a sound bath, because people are usually surprised. They feel like they're the only person in there that's new. And so I like everybody to see, okay, like half the room is new, half the room are the regulars. Never fails. Half new, half regular. And that also puts their mind at ease usually, because you're not alone in your new experience. And then I usually take people through a really short breathing exercise, very short guided meditation, just to help you relax the body. Yeah. Not anything that's attached to any spiritual beliefs or anything like that, more of like a relaxation method. Mm-hmm. And then there's just the experience of the instruments. There'll be a brief period of silence, and then you hear my voice to bring you back and feel a little bit more grounded, so that if you want to talk about your experience, I offer that. But if you want to continue on with your evening, then you have that flexibility to head out if you need to head out. But yeah.
It's so healing. Oh my goodness. And you talked about how you can go to sleep.
Yeah.
I went to sleep, and I remember my therapist saying, well, I'm so happy that you felt so comfortable with me that you could go to sleep.
Exactly. Well, and the cool thing about this experience is that it really meets you exactly where you are. Yeah. Whatever you're holding in your nervous system, that is the experience that's going to be attached to coming to that session. So if you've been having a hard time sleeping, you're having insomnia, this can put you to sleep. If you're working through stress or anxiety, the subconscious mind can show you various shapes or colors, or give you this like knowing sense about something. Yeah. Usually it's more of a dialogue that I like. If you're like, hey, I saw purple, what does purple mean? Then I can ask you more questions and help you. I know what purple means. So like, we'll have that dialogue to help connect what is coming through in your experience to how to apply it in your day-to-day now. So yeah, it's really, really amazing. I have people who suffer from insomnia who come. The magic number for things is usually 369 from my experience. But in 3 sessions, they start to notice their insomnia going away or their anxiety subsiding. I work with people with PTSD, and so that's a whole other type of facilitation usually. But even in a group sound bath session, they've noticed that they're connecting more with their bodies, because people who've experienced trauma don't necessarily want to be in touch with their physical bodies. And so the work has just been, it can help on so many levels.
So all of this helps to raise our vibration.
So I would say that, I think that's more of a buzzword, raising our vibration. It's really about more of a consistent vibration. Mm-hmm. So it's just, which one do you want to live on? So like, so if somebody is depressed, that is a very consistent vibration. Mm-hmm. And happiness is another very consistent vibration. So I wouldn't say that it's what we're really wanting is not necessarily a higher vibration, but more of a consistent vibration.
Got it.
Makes sense.
And so this is, the sounds are considered to be high frequency.
What's so special about the quartz crystal bowls specifically is that they're the same crystalline structure as our bones, as our blood, a lot of like what we're made up of. And so when we go in and play those specific pure frequency instruments, we're resonating things back to a healthy state in whatever range that that healthy state is for that organ or that system. So is that kind of more like what?
I'm actually glad that you said that, because like you said, raise your vibration, be high frequency. That is a buzzword, right? I mean, of course, when people say it, it's like, okay, yes, I'm going to raise my vibration, but what does that even mean?
Yeah. I just like, I don't know. It is really confusing, because it's like I can be here, but where I am right now, like it feels good.
Yeah.
And to raise it, it's not it's not necessarily correct. It's more of like, what is healthy?
Yeah.
Where on the spectrum do you want to be?
Yeah.
When it comes to your health or how you want to feel?
Yeah. Or be in alignment with who you really are, basically.
Yes.
Is really what they're trying to say, as far as raising your vibration, is to be in alignment with who you really are.
Yes, and be consistent with it.
Yes, be consistent.
Because it's that consistency. I was reminded last night, actually, that we become more in alignment and become more consistent in our frequency, in a healthy frequency, when we keep our promises to ourselves. And so that builds the trust within ourselves to have confidence to continue to be in that alignment.
Is that how we begin to heal? Is the fact that these sounds put us back in alignment with our healthy state, and from that state we're able to heal, we're able to slow down, we're able to go within and see what it is that we really, really need, because it makes us more aware of who we really are.
With yes,
with sound healing.
With sound healing specifically, it creates an opportunity for us to be still. And it's a place that we're not taught, to do this for ourselves, to be still enough, to be aware enough and present enough to notice what the conversation is that's happening in our minds on autopilot. To really pay attention to how our physical bodies are feeling, to pay attention to our mental state, to our spiritual state. And I think that that's one of the powerful things about sound healing, is that it connects the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, whatever spiritual means to you, to bring us to this place where we feel whole and we feel connected and we feel peace. And to remember that we are love, and to remember that we come from this place of love, and we can see where we're really not, when we're that still, we can see where we're not fully showing up for ourselves. And when we're not fully showing up for ourselves, we're not showing up for our friends, our family, the world at large. And I believe that when we do that for ourselves, that's really when we see the bigger shift in consciousness on a global scale. But it starts with each of us individually first. And whether it's coming to a sound bath or finding stillness at home somehow, this sound healing is a tool. It's just a tool. And it helps to capture that mind chatter fairly quickly. It helps you to get to that place of stillness fairly quickly. But you don't necessarily, like, some people don't need the sound to do that. They can drop in on their own, but it's a really great tool to support people in finding that stillness, to find that self-empowerment, but also guide them along to create the opportunity for the body to go into its own natural healing state as well.
That's so awesome. And what's so interesting too is when we think about sound without knowing that there's sound healing out there. Of course, you know, music makes us feel
Mhm.
good, right? It makes us feel
Yeah.
all these different emotions. And we're not thinking like, oh my God, like there's actually sounds out there that will put us in this different state where we're able to actually heal. Like it's opposite from what we think sound or music is, you know, although music helps us in so many ways with our emotions, with our thinking, like everything. So I just think that's so amazing that that sound does that for us. And obviously it's, you know, we're meant to have sound. We speaking is sound, like you said, like speaking people's emotions, their energy, everything, it's all connected.
It's all, and like you said, with music too, like we're already self-medicating with music. When
Yeah.
we're sad, we'll listen to a particular song. When we want to get hyped up, we're listening to a particular song, you know?
Yep.
Um, and it's not just the sounds that we can hear, it's also the sounds that we can't hear that affect us. So there's sounds that are happening with a heartbeat, with the blood rushing through our veins. There's something in yoga called nada yoga, where it's the philosophy of the external sounds of our world and the internal sounds within, and how that creates the universe.
Yeah.
And the inner sounds are coming back to awareness of self, and then the external sounds, I mean, if a car is honking, that's affecting you. If it's a dog barking, or your neighbors talking loudly in the other apartment next to you, a baby's laugh, how does that make you feel? You
So
know,
good.
yeah. So yeah, we're constantly affected by sounds, and we can actually use the sounds in our environment for healing as well, or to alleviate them. So like if there's a car horn going off, for example, you can match. I mean, it's kind of silly. It feels silly to do, but I've done it outside. But like the car horn's going off, and you're just like bat bat bat, meeting the frequency of the car horn, and that can actually transmute the negative
Yeah.
feelings that are coming over your mental state or your physical state. Um,
That's so
it's
true.
wild. I don't know.
And thinking about sounds, like you said, that either feel good or don't feel good. Stuff you're trying to get rid of or stuff you're trying to get more of.
Yeah, and you can empower yourself by choosing which direction you want to go with it, by becoming more present. And I think like coming to a sound bath does help in becoming more present and aware
Yeah.
of those types of things.
Wow. That's so good. And I see why too, like meditation music, like I like meditation music as well. It makes me so relaxed, just like
Yeah.
a sound bath makes me so relaxed. And I'm like you said, some people are able to drop into that. And then there's times when you can't. And the fact that you can actually go to a sound bath or turn on meditation music and totally just zone out, that's amazing. That's a
And
gift.
it's a really powerful way to become aware of yourself and show yourself more compassion. So like I went to a sound bath the other day for myself, to actually receive.
Mhm.
And I had so much mind chatter the whole time, and I wasn't able to get into that deep state of rest and that deep state of stillness.
Mhm.
But what that tells me and brings an awareness to me is, wow, I need to slow down. I
Yeah.
need to show myself more compassion in this other area of my life, or really, I need to slow down for a minute. So we can begin that compassion for ourselves and self-love for ourselves through self-discovery, and asking more questions and being curious. So it's not always you go to it, and I've been doing this for 7 years. Like, it's not always that I go to a sound bath and I'm able to drop into that deep meditative state.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like a wake up call that Danielle, you need more sleep, or Danielle, you need to chill out, or, show yourself more compassion in this area, or slow down.
Yeah.
So, awareness is power. And like, when we have the awareness, we get to choose to empower ourselves to make the change we want to see in our lives. So, sound baths can be really helpful for that.
Yeah. That's so good. I love that. Like I hope that all of you guys out there go check out a sound bath because it's really gonna change your life. Like it's amazing. It's like I told you this, when I think about going to a sound bath, just the thought of it
Mm.
makes me, I become relaxed immediately. Like it brings me so much joy just thinking about it because sometimes you just want to breathe.
Yeah. I love that.
Where did sound healing come from?
Oh, that's a great question. So sound healing, you can think of sound healing as an umbrella. Um, Sound healing comes from a lot of cultures. And we bring it all together on this one umbrella called sound healing. But it's really a lot of ancient practices coming together uh, for this one therapy, for the facilitation of this therapy. So, like didgeridoos are an instrument of sound healing. So that came from Australia, and the Aborigines who used didgeridoos for setting bones, or for um, reproduction, and grounding and pain relief. Um, then there's, the quartz crystal bowls are actually not that old. They're a fairly new instrument that were accidentally discovered in San Jose, California.
Really? In San Jose? Wow.
Accidentally discovered. I forgot which company it was that they're using these quartz tubes in their machine, and then but like something would happen, and they would throw them out, and somebody went dumpster diving and discovered that they are really pretty. They make a really pretty sound, and started playing them as instruments. They put a bottom on them, and started making them an instrument. And then later on, they were discovered that the same resonant frequency is our biology, and there you go.
You know what year this was? Was it like in the 70s or the 60s?
It was like the 60s.
Okay. I could totally see that happening.
And then, drumming, shamanic drumming from Peru, or the Native Americans, or and how that is connecting either your energy to the earth, to Gaia, or using drumming, shamanic drumming, to connect with your guides, and to create a connection with your guides and find answers. So there, a lot of these instruments come from, all over the globe, and were used for a lot of different reasons and purposes. And so now, when in sound healing, we bring all of those instruments together, remembering those ancient practices and facilitating in a way that is appropriate for that, with that instrument.
Who knew that sound could actually do that?
It can, people. Yeah. And I think that's really where the notion of, where a sound healer is not a sound healer, it's a sound practitioner or sound therapist.
Yeah.
Because all we're doing is creating the environment for your body to go into its own natural healing processes, and whatever that is that it needs. Mm-hmm. We're dilating, in creating this, it's dilating blood vessels to get more oxygen flow within the body. You're going through the rest and digest phase. We put you into the relaxation response. So all of these things can happen. You're shifted into the parasympathetic nervous system state. Even if the mind chatter doesn't subside, you're still getting the benefits of it, from slowing down your heart rate, and creating that flow,
Yeah. Wow, that's
that
so
blood
cool.
flow.
That's so awesome. Are there any other things that you would like to share with us that you may have not shared about sound healing, or any final thoughts or remarks?
I'd say I was a huge skeptic going into it, and even when I was going through school to do this, still like a really big skeptic. There's still a lot that still needs to be discovered on a science level, for this practice.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would ask anyone to do in going into this is if you can come in with an open mind. Um, this experience is going to be different every single time you experience it. And I know if you're anything like me or anything like who I was then, um, that skeptical mind is going to come in and say a whole bunch of things. Um, and I invite you to breathe through that and see if you can have an open mind. Not all sound practitioners are created equal. Not everybody thinks the same way that I do or presents it in the way that I do. So I can't speak for all sound practitioners, but I hope that you would give it a shot. I hope that you give it a chance, and and really see how sound can affect you in this way. It's so relaxing.
It really is. It really, really, really is. Wow. Well, thank you for everything that you do for us, helping all of us heal. I really, really do appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you for having me.